Welcome to Horror Score. We're here at the Horror Score studio.
Our living room.
Yes, this is our living room, which has a new addition.
Yes, we got a nice piece of goulardi swag from my mother. If you're a Cleveland native or Ohio native, he was kind of like an original Joe Bob, that kind of person in the early 60s.
We like Joe Bob Briggs in this house. Yeah. In fact, date night on Friday nights usually is getting together and watching an unwatched episode of The Last Drive-In. So in the event that he or Darcy is watching, we're fans. Before we move on, we're your hosts, Jesse and
Vanessa.
And this episode is
Tom Holland's Twisted Tales.
Who would have thought? The actor who played Spider-Man wrote a bunch of little short horror movies.
No, different Tom Holland. Very different.
Child's
Play.
Yeah, the director of Child's Play. Night of the Creeps? Fright Night for sure. Yeah, definitely Fright Night.
Fright Night, that's right.
So it's an anthology. We love anthology horror movies.
Yeah, usually they're great.
And look at the cover. Can we get a bigger picture of that cover up for the people at home?
Cool. A spooky doll. I'm always into a spooky doll story.
Right. You know what? We reviewed Tales from the Hood recently. It's got a spooky doll story. It's a very good anthology. This one is 2 hours and 24 minutes long.
I'm going to be very honest. It took us 3 days to watch it.
Which is good. If you have to break up a movie over time, an anthology is perfect for that because you can stop between segments and be like, you know what? We're going to pause here. We're going to go to bed. We're going to leave our scorecards. We'll come back to this tomorrow. I think, though...
And then the next day.
There were 9 stories, and I think 4 of them could have very easily have been cut, and it could have been 5 watchable stories for a reasonable length anthology film.
They could have cut 8.
So we're mostly going to talk about the ones that we were able to find things that we enjoyed. So if there is nothing else that you want to mention before we get into scoring this film, we can start scoring it.
Sure.
All right. Well, here at Horror Score, we score films that we own or have legal access to on a 20-point scale over 5 categories, giving us a horror score for the movie. So our first category is story. Vanessa, why don't you take it away?
Okay. Let's see. The story. Let's see if I can find a story written by a writer who writes things. The writing in every single segment is atrocious. It's really, really bad.
Now, I would say some of the stories are a good idea.
Oh, yeah. Like, some of the concepts, I'm like, oh, yeah, like, let's do this. And then they proceed to butcher that wonderful baby idea before it can grow up.
What did you score this category?
I gave it a 4.
Okay, so is that like an indication that you liked 4 of the 9 stories, or did you not even enjoy that many of them?
I would say that there were a couple of characters that I really liked, and I feel like that goes into the story category. There were like a couple of characters where I was like, that's fun, that's funny. Or that actor in this giant cast like did a great job holding his own against the script.
Yeah, this movie, I mean, it's directed by Tom Holland, so that's a big name. And there are a lot of cameos, which we'll probably discuss later in the S Factor category. But yeah, I was really surprised that I had to look hard to find things that I did enjoy. I did like the Pizza Man story.
Now, people would probably notice by now, if you've seen any of our previous videos, that Jesse tends to be a much kinder soul, always looking for the positive things in a movie.
Well, that's why it's good that you have 2 separate hosts with different opinions. And
I'm like the Simon Cowell.
Okay. I mean, I'm always trying to give people reasons to watch a particular film.
That's why you're the Paula Abdul.
Okay. So I gave story a 6. Watching it, like I said, the Pizza Guy segment was good. It was a little long. They broke it into chapters, which was sort of weird for there to be 7 chapters of a 20-minute short as part of a large anthology.
Distracting.
It was very strange. Like when it started, I mean, this was the 8th segment too. So like we had 35, 40 minutes of the movie left, and it was like chapter 1, and we're like, oh, that's weird.
I thought, oh no.
Well, I was thinking maybe this is broken up into 3 chapters. You got your first act, second act, but 7. There was 7 chapters.
I agree. I think the Pizza Man story was a great concept.
Great story.
Loved it.
The script
Pizza
was
Man
very...
himself, nauseating. Terrible.
I think the actor was just doing what he was told to do. But the dialogue is very repetitive. It's like Group A says something, there's a response. Group A says the same thing again, which gets the same response.
There's nothing driving the plot forward. It's just the same stakes and the same scene.
But I liked, there was a segment called Boom that I enjoyed. Parts of To Hell With You. So I feel confident that a 6 is appropriate. But
how did you feel about the villain?
Villains. Well, based off of the cover to this movie, I thought for sure we were going to get lots of
something scary,
a monster here and there, some cool creepy things, maybe a ghost. But all the bad guys are people, and if they are a weird, if they are some kind of a monster, they're a monster who looks just like a person. With the exception of we get to see some werewolves, which have a transformation that we will discuss in the next scoring section. But I gave villains a 5. One of them I loved. I think my second favorite segment, maybe even my favorite segment, was Cached, about a haunted iPad.
Yeah, it was a tablet.
I liked it. I liked almost everything about that one. There was some parts where the acting is like not very good. But otherwise, I liked the villain. Like he was a weird little Beetlejuice kind of ghost.
He did too much Beetlejuice.
Yeah, he did that.
It was almost a straight rip.
But because the impression of Beetlejuice wasn't very good, it seemed original. Like, oh, he's doing his own thing here. But it just turned out it was probably just not a very good Beetlejuice impression. But that was my favorite villain, and I think all 5 points are just to him. Maybe 1 point for the Pizza Man. What'd you get?
I gave villain a 5, and again, I also liked the Tablet Man. I thought that was interesting. This movie came out in 2014, but it was originally a web series.
Which was a web series that they released and chopped up as a TV show. And I think that two of them, which I just read online, were not part of that series. Right. Unnecessary. There was already so many videos, and it was pretty long.
I have to mention one of the cameos because he was my favorite bad guy. But William Forsythe is in this, so extraordinary actor. He was in a lot of Rob Zombie's horror films, but he's also in my favorite movie of all time, Once Upon a Time in America, where he plays like a cool gangster guy. But in this, he plays the devil. And he's just a great actor in general, so he really kind of carried the scene for me. It was one of the shorts that worked because the acting didn't blow it.
I would say he was a devil, not the devil.
Oh, he wasn't the devil. He was like a demon.
Yeah.
He was one of those little devil apprentices.
Well,
so I gave it a 5.
Okay. So low scores so far. Maybe the next category we'll have more luck. Let's stumble into horror. You want to go first on horror?
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got a lot of CGI, Jesse. I got a lot of CGI and an upsetting amount of CGI.
I mean, CGI can be scary.
It wasn't.
Okay.
You back that up with some terrible writing, and it just makes a tragedy.
Okay.
I was not afraid ever, except when I hit pause and I realized how much longer in the movie we had. I was terrified.
I do remember that.
I don't think I'm gonna make it.
And we didn't. We went. We broke it up over a couple days, like we said. Okay. Anything else about? What would you give it? What'd you give it for horror?
Give it a 3.
That is tied for the lowest score that either of us has given a category since episode 1. Since we've started this show, that is tied for the lowest score that anything has gotten in a single category. I was a little kinder. I gave it a 6 because I was able to find something in 3 of the 9 stories where I was like, okay, all right, this is.
It got a point from me for each of those.
Yeah. It's rough. They are in all ways, stumbling little shorts. I would have felt better about it if I found out these were submitted as part of a contest where, like, Tom Holland hosted an event and said, "Hey, you've got 1 week to turn in a horror film that can be 20 minutes or less." I'd be like, all right, I mean, they didn't have much to work with. I get it. They were rushing these out, but
then wouldn't you end with, like, the contest winner?
They
Instead of
definitely did
ending
not.
with a short with almost no dialogue.
Yeah. You know what? If you watch this movie, if you decide that you're gonna take this on, we bought this movie for $13 recently, and if you decide to do the same, or if you want to pay the $2.99 to rent it on Amazon Prime, you could do that. But maybe when the 8th episode is over, which is the pizza guy, just turn it off. Let's talk about the effects. I saw something in this movie I've never seen before, but it wasn't a positive. It's a negative. Story number 5, I believe, is called Bite, which had a decent little plot, that there was this new drug.
It was like salvia
called
or like
Bite.
spice or something that the kids were smoking.
But when you smoke it, one of the side effects is you become a werewolf, and then you attack everybody else in the room. And
we have a cat.
We have a cat attacking the tripod. Okay, we're back. The cat has promised he will not move the tripod again. Gee, oh no. And we're back. Sorry for the technical difficulties that we had there. We are also having a thunderstorm, so maybe we could have several different things that interfere with this episode. All at once.
None as cute as Steven's.
You're gonna meet him.
And he has a picture of him.
Yeah. We do have 3 babies in this house that we have to lock in separate rooms while we film episodes of Horror Score.
Steven's, you can't lock in a room
because he'll scream.
Scream.
So in the episode Bite that we were just talking about, before we experienced some technical difficulties, when people were being bit and spraying blood, it would freeze frame, and then there would be just some CGI blood that would spray off of the picture.
Right. Like the rest of the screen would go gray, and then you'd just see like the bright red. Like,
yeah,
spray.
it was very odd. There was also some good practical effects in that episode at first.
Yeah.
When they were changing into werewolves. Like, oh, neat. That looks pretty good. His
so you did know how to do.
But then they just did a cross-dissolve transformation and threw all that away. As horror fans, I think it's just in our blood to like practical effects, and that episode had some.
We like the effort. We like seeing that you committed and you cared about the product enough to like put time and effort into it.
Yeah, it's easy to say like, yeah, we'll just do it later and
we'll figure it out
post.
in editing.
We'll just take care of it.
We'll make the editor figure
yeah, it'll be fine. But I gave effects a 6. In that episode, had a lot of them, even though there was some poorly executed CGI. There was a really cool bomb that was built in the episode Boom. But what'd you give it?
I gave it a 3.
Okay.
Because there was just one scene, one set per segment. Nobody got to leave the room. There was never any like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next kind of thing. It's probably going to take place in this room, like a soap opera.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And the chapters. I keep getting hung up on the chapters because there were 7 of them for a 20-minute short.
And pretty much chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 were just about the same. Well, you know what? We've got one category left. We're sailing right along, and before we lose power in this thunderstorm, we try to wrap this up. But our final category is called S Factor, which we sort of copied and mimicked from Doomsday Preppers, where it's our last category, where we can award points for whatever reason we wanted to, whether it be camp, nudity, a particularly awesome death scene, a stunt that was crazy.
Man.
Yeah.
All that would have been cool.
Yeah, any of that.
Yeah.
Any of that
really
would have been pretty cool.
So I gave S Factor a 6, which is the highest I gave any of the previous categories because there was a cool, like, self-referential, like, Chucky thing in the Bite segment.
There was a good cameo.
It was like a Tom Holland, like, nod to his previous works. Ray Wise was in it, so if you got any Twin Peaks fans or anything. William Forsythe, like I mentioned before. But also from kind of Rob Zombie fame was Danielle Harris. So she was in Halloween 4 and 5, and then she was in the Rob Zombie Halloween remakes 1 and 2. And she was also in Urban Legends, Hatchet 2 and 3.
I like the Hatchet movies.
And what I first saw her in, this is the thing, my sister and I used to watch this Disney movie called Wish Upon a Star, I believe.
Okay.
Where sisters like trade places. It's one of those kind of like Freaky Friday movies. So what'd you give it?
Well, as far as cameos go, there was an extra one that I picked up. I recognized James Duval from Donnie Darko and Independence Day.
What was he in Donnie Darko?
He was the Frank, the guy in the bunny suit.
Well, how did you recognize him?
Because
with the bullet hole in his face.
Well, I mean, I knew that actor was in Independence Day. He's been in a ton of things, but those are the only two that come to mind off the top of my head that he's been in. S Factor, I gave this movie a 4, and part of it was for the Chucky's Easter egg in the same font. I thought that was cool. That cameo, and there were 5 stories that I was like, okay, like this has some salvageable parts. Maybe 4 of them did not. So before we add these single-digit numbers together to give you our individual scores, we're going to turn to Vanessa's one-sentence synopsis.
Tom Holland keeps himself busy in retirement by undermining his life's work. Harsh.
Yeah.
Harsh,
yeah.
Vanessa.
Sorry, Tom Holland. I do like a lot of your work and respect you as a director and a writer. We just did not enjoy this movie very much. I felt very misled by the box art.
Betrayed, maybe.
Haven't been this betrayed by box art since Bog Creatures. All things considered, I was able to give this movie 26 horror score points, which is higher than I would have guessed. So there you go. What about you?
I found 21 points in there.
21.
Yeah.
So,
which is a combined total of 23.5.
So that's 23 and a half reasons why maybe you don't want to listen to us. And maybe you want to check
maybe you want to
check this movie out.
Go watch it.
Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie a 10%. And IMDb gives it a 4.1. So we fell sort of in the middle of both of those sources. So as always, if you give us 15 minutes, maybe we'll save you 2 hours and 24 minutes in this case.
Stay spooky.